Would I say overall that it speeds up my planting? Do I consider it worth it? And can I see myself using it every single year when I go to plant my bulbs? I would say that that's probably my final judgment on this specific type of tool, is that it is a beautiful November day here in Ottawa, and I am going to be giving you guys a review on bulb augers today. I put it out to a vote in my community post to let you guys choose which video was coming up next, whether you wanted a raised metal bed end of year review or a bulb auger review, and you guys voted for the metal raised beds. But you might be noticing that we are doing a bulb auger review, and that is because essentially the vote was split. It was 55-45. It really wasn't that big of a deal. So I decided I was going to do both of the videos, and yes, I listened to you guys, and don't worry, this video for the end of year metal raised beds is coming out next week, so you'll definitely want to subscribe and put on your notifications for that. But today we're going to do the review on the bulb auger because so many of you were interested in both of them, and it just made a lot more timely sense to be doing this one first. It is a bit of a disclaimer, it's November here, which means that it's really windy, it's cold, and the sound is just traveling really far because all of the deciduous trees have essentially lost their leaves. So it is noisy behind me, but that is part of a urban backyard. That's just the way it is. The roadway is noisy. The city is cutting down trees all around the neighborhood. So there is those wood chipper noises, and there is also just construction work that is happening all around us. So I'm going to do my best to keep it as quiet as possible and pause when it gets really windy or if there is any construction that's really, really close to me. But unfortunately, there's only so much I can do between all of the weather patterns that are coming through. It rained yesterday, it's raining tomorrow, so I just have to get it done today and fight through the wind. And that is what we're going to be doing when we work outdoors. We just have to work with the weather the way it is. So with that, I'm going to show you all about this bulb auger that I bought. In full transparency, I just bought it this year. I just started planting with it on Sunday for the first time ever, and the results were not what I was expecting with it, which is what led me to want to make this review for you guys, because it's definitely an investment. I think I got two. This is from Work Pro. I did get these off Amazon, and it came as a 2-pack, and I'm pretty sure it was $30 or $40 for these 2 pieces, which is actually a lot of money when it comes to a tool that is very, very specialized. I did do a review on my Hori Hori knife last year, the year before, and it was also my first time using it, and I was pretty critical of this tool. And since then, I've actually realized that the Hori Hori knife is way more amazing than it was. So there is a chance that I'm critical of this bulb auger, and then it turns out that as I get better with it, I like it more, but I'm not entirely sure if that's the case. Really, really important disclaimer. If you are going to be using these, they are made out of metal. They can go fairly deep. You need to know where your water line, your gas line, and any electrical or internet lines are before you are using one of these, because this can damage them, especially if you are using a power drill, which is how they work. So it is going to be strong enough that it damages the lines. I don't know about other places, but here in Ontario, it's called Call Before You Dig, and it's actually no longer calling you, do it online. You put in a notification, and they're going to come through, and they're going to mark all of the lines for you. So for example, I have a gas line right here along the side of my house, and it runs through my garden. So I need to be really careful to never use this on the lawn if I don't know where my gas line is, where my water lines are. I thankfully know where all of those are for me, so that's not going to be an issue for me today with you guys, but you really need to know it. And it's not just for your front yard, your backyard can have lines in it too. So make sure that you do the notification for your entire property before you ever use one of these augers, because you really don't want to nick a gas line. That one is really bad, and you don't want to screw up your internet, for example, because nobody wants that. It's going to be expensive. So please make sure you locate all of your lines on your property before you do this. Okay, so today We are going to be planting a mix of things. I have these tiny little alliums here, which have the smallest bulbs I've ever seen before. These are like crocus small bulbs. And then I otherwise have tulips. I normally do not grow tulips because I hate fighting with squirrels. They love tulips. They love to dig up the tulips, eat the bulbs, eat the heads, eat the leaves. The bunnies love tulips. Usually I avoid tulips because of that. However, I do have one package of tulips that we planted years ago and the squirrels have actually left them alone. So I am taking a chance and I'm going to be planting tulips just to see if we can use them because I love fresh tulips in vases in my house. So that is why I'm going to be planting these. And these bulbs are significantly larger than these bulbs here, which means it's going to be interesting whether I am going to be using this thinner auger or the bigger one. Little bit of a spoiler, I've used the bigger one and it didn't do what I thought it would. It made sense to use it for these larger bulb sizes. But we're gonna see. I also have two different drills here because I think when we bought these, they came together. This is your normal drill and this is an impact drill. And I originally started with this one on Sunday, but the front of it kept on loosening. And so with the impact drill, you actually have to do something. Oh, pull it forward here. So that way you can get the bit in there. So I don't know. Apparently it needs to be a very specific bit for the impact drill to hold on to it, but I'm kind of hoping that I can get mine in this one because then I don't have to worry about it loosening and the bit falling out, which was this whole other experience of annoyance. So I'm going to try both of these drills today. I'm going to try both of the augers for you. And then I have my hori knife too, in case everything just doesn't go to plan and I need to go back to my original way of planting. So with that, let's get into digging these up and let me show you my initial thoughts on whether a bulb auger is worth it for you or not. So one of the things about planting spring bulbs is that there's a lot of plants in the way where you would want to be planting your bulbs. And of course, these plants like this peony wouldn't look like this when the spring bulbs are coming up. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut pretty well everything to the ground here so that way I get the best view of where they are going to be. So I cut down all of the flower stems on just the two that are closest to the house. This is my version of clean. And if you've been following me for any period of time, you'll know that sustainability and supporting insects is a really big deal for us here. So before you get concerned about where all of the stems went that insects were potentially hibernating in, let me show you. So I don't have any deciduous trees on my property, but my neighbor has a massive one. And he also is the type of person who just wants green grass, no weeds all the time. He rakes and mows his lawn in November, which is the opposite of what we do here. But to my luck, I said to him, just keep on bringing all of your leaves from the road and your tree over to my house. And so that is what this massive pile of leaves are. And in the back, you can see all of the cosmos and the peonies over here. So I just cut everything up and threw it into this pile here. And we're going to be putting some of these leaves into our outdoor compost bins. And otherwise, I'm just going to leave them here for the insects. I obviously do not want to damage my peonies. So I have one over here and one right here. So I'm just going to make sure that I don't go in between that. And we're going to find out if this can fit in. Oh, it's too thick. Darn. Okay, so the impact drill is not going to work, which is a bit of a disappointment. Okay, so let's start with the really big one. I didn't find this to be useful, and what I did think when I first did this was that it's better to do this when the soil is wet. So thankfully it rained all day yesterday and it rained on Thursday and Friday of last week, so the ground should be nice and wet, and that's going to really help. So I figured that this really big auger was better for the tulip bulb since the tulips are so big that this just would make more sense. Am I going backwards? I totally am. Oh, also, it makes a huge mess. My hori knife has measurements on it. So this is actually 6 inches deep. And if I look at my tulip bulb package. It says to plant 4 to 6 inches deep. So that actually turned out to be a good depth. And it leaves a good amount of space for a single bulb in there, which is really quite nice. I found with the smaller auger that it just wasn't a big enough hole for a tulip because of how large the bulbs are. And this is actually a really large hole for a tulip bulb, but that's okay. And expect to get your shoes full of dirt. I'm going to tell you that this soil is doing so much better than the soil in the backyard. When I was drilling these, it honestly would just refill every time that I was using it. So that's another thing that you have to be mindful of, is that you don't crank your wrist from the power of the drill, because you can hurt yourself. Oh, a poor little worm. That's the one thing it kicks up soil and spits at so many places that it's actually kind of hard to get the soil back to refill the holes, but it's not the biggest deal. Okay, so that is the really big auger and how that one works. So let's switch over to the small one. So the soil here is this is our natural soil. I didn't add any garden soil into here. So this soil is like a little mix of clay. It's a sandy clay here in Ottawa. And this is working out so much better than the backyard was, where I had added in garden soil and it was quite literally just refilling itself back in. So now I have these little tiny alliums here, and they say to only plant them 3 inches. And I'm a little past that, so I'm actually gonna have to refill this in a bit because I don't want to plant it too deep. So I wonder, the 3-inch mark is about halfway on these. So you can kind of see as I pull out the auger how soil just fills right back into it. And that was part of my issue when I was using this, is I found that, especially in my back garden, that it just kind of kept refilling itself. And that was what was making it so irritating to use this product. But today is working out so much better. So I would say that if you have sandy soil, you're definitely not going to find this auger to be all that helpful. But if you're like me and a lot of Ontario and you have clay soil, then you're going to find this to be a lot more of a useful tool. And if you haven't had any rain, you're definitely going to want to water your ground like really thoroughly before you use this tool. So I have this one section of my property that oddly has really sandy soil. And so I'm going to show you what it looks like to use this when the soil is really sandy. Like, it's just... So I don't know if I hit a rock or what I hit, but this thing is not going any deeper. So that is about as deep as a hole as I can possibly get it. It's really dusty, so I can taste it in my mouth. So you might want to, use a mask if you're in a really sandy spot. But that is exactly what it does. It's just going to kick up all kinds of dust for you if the soil is dry or sandy. Okay, so today worked out way better than it did on Sunday, which tells me that the soil type matters with these bulb augers. Now, for a lot of us, we plant our spring bulbs directly in the ground wherever our lawn was. So a lot of us do have clay soil naturally, which is really going to help. But if you are using a garden blend that has more loam, peat or sand in it, then it's going to be the same experience that I had in my backyard, where the auger just kept refilling the hole on it. If the ground has to be wet. Like, I think it goes without saying the ground has to be wet for it to function properly without it refilling. And you do have to clearly expect to get dirty, because it threw the soil literally everywhere, in my shoes, in my socks, all over my pants. So you just have to be prepared for that. I think my other problem was that it also made my drill really dirty. And if you want to use your drill inside the house, or you don't really like the idea of soil or sand getting into your electric drill, then you might need a separate drill specifically for this, which starts to get really expensive. So it just depends on how picky you are on how dirty your drill set gets, or how dirty you get. The small auger, in my opinion, is fairly useless. It worked really well for those tiny, tiny bulbs, but for tulip bulbs, I tried to use it in the backyard because I thought the big auger was too big. And when I was using the really small auger and trying to shove the tulip bulb in, I could hear it cracking every single time. So that smaller auger is literally just too small for it. But since they came in a 2-pack, it works out well, because then I can use that auger for the small bulbs and then the bigger one for the tulips. I'm going to put the product description for you guys below so you can see exactly which one I bought, how much it was, and then the size of it, and whether you want to get that exact one or a different one. At least the size is going to help you gauge just what size that you are going to need for the type of bulbs that you like to plant. Would I say overall that it speeds up my planting? Probably not really, because with the hori-hori knife, it's pretty easy to dig out some soil, move it to the side, and plant your bulb. Plus the hori-hori knife has measurements on it, so you can see how deep you're going. So I wouldn't necessarily say it saves time. It does save energy though, because digging down, you need to use a lot of force, especially if the soil is really compacted. So you definitely save energy using the drill and auger versus your hori-hori knife. Overall, do I consider it worth it? And can I see myself using it every single year when I go to plant my bulbs? Probably, because I like that I don't have to get my hands too dirty. If the soil is wet, I'm not really getting my hands wet, because the auger's doing most of the work, and then I'm just planting in there. I think that probably the fastest option is to dig a bunch of holes, leave them empty, and then go and stick your bulb in after. I think that would probably be the best way to use it. And then I think I might use the little auger to attempt to plant garlic next year, but if it just keeps refilling the hole with soil as it falls back into it, then I might not use that. I think that this is not a must-have tool, it's a nice-to-have tool. I would say that that's probably my final judgment on this specific type of tool, is that it's more of a luxury than it is a necessity. And again, this tool really only works for one thing and one thing only. It's a single-use tool, but it's been kind of fun to play with. So that would be my overall end of review for the specific bulb auger. If you did enjoy today's video and found it helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below on if this is something that you already own or have been thinking about, and what you think you're going to do based off of the information that I've told you. Subscribe to the channel, share this video with a friend in case they might also be thinking about getting a bulb auger, and check out this video here.